So here's how the ammo can stove goes together. Set the grate. And it's ready to load and go. Okay, so here's how the ammo can becomes a stove. First and foremost, this is a 60mm ammunition can. I'm going to guess it's about maybe 16 to 18 inches tall, about 5 inches wide. You can use any ammo can that you want to as far as I'm concerned. First things first, remove the lid, and then what you're going to want to do is take this rubber gasket out, and it might be hard to see in the picture, but there are little tiny spot welds all along here. Once you've taken the rubber gasket out, get in here with a chisel and just start taking a hammer and chisel, and you can pop this inner plate out. I'll put a couple of pictures at the end of the video that takes you through how I did it. Next thing to do is run a cutting wheel right here if you've got one. Take the handle off. Make it go away. So once the inner liner's gone and the handle's gone, next trick is to take the handle off. And on mine, I cut it about 3 inches up from the side opposite the hinge. That's what gave me this little piece here. If you don't want to cut this door, you can leave the door one piece, and I would just put a circular piece of metal here with a bolt through it, and you could drill 4 holes in it, and then when you turn the disc you could use that as the regulator for the air. That'll save you the trouble of having to cut this door and weld it on. You could just leave this one piece. So here's a little more detail on my air regulator. Basically 2 pieces of metal, an inner piece, an outer piece to go over the edge of it, and of course I just added this little handle on it. Essentially it just slides back and forth, real simple. Just set the metal up, drill 2 holes, and then use a jigsaw to cut between the holes to open these up. Welding this outer piece on was a little tricky. When I first got it on there, of course this was really stiff. So I actually had to get under this lip a little bit with a screwdriver and pry it back a little bit to loosen it up so it could get going again. So there you go. The other thing I did is after I cut the 3 inches off of the door, when I stuck it on here, instead of the lower flange fitting over the bottom, I actually picked it up, slid it up a little bit, put it back in so that it sat inside. And the reason I did that was so that I could get a little bit of overlap here. So that way it overlaps the bottom piece by just about 1/4 of an inch. So you can see how that goes. And of course I had to trim this out a little bit so that it would fit inside. So there's the regulator. Okay, so after the door's done and you've got it cut and you've added your air regulator, the next thing to do is to cut the hole for the stovepipe. And you want to cut the hole on the same side that the hinges are on. So just bring it down a little bit and trim it out. For this I just used a jigsaw. And what I did is I sleeved it with a piece of metal. I actually hand formed this and then just welded it. And then I added 2 little tabs inside there to keep the stovepipe from dropping down inside. So you got the hole for the stovepipe, step 2, you got the door, step 1. Next step is to do the feet on the bottom. Normally we've got this latch here. Of course, we've already cut this off of the door. So what we're left with is this little loop here. And this loop is perfect for putting in the front legs. You'll just need to trim this piece off a little bit, trim that piece off there, and that's when your 1/4" steel rod goes through. Like I've done here. And you can see how much I've had to take off. Now in order to get this rod through, I bent it first, welded it to this bottom leg. And because I did that, I actually had to cut this. So I just cut it with a grinder, pried it open, stuck the rod in there, pushed it down, and then welded it back into place. And of course the back of the can doesn't have one of those, so I had to add one. So this is just simply angle iron. Same thing, trim it, leave a small tab here. That way it only lets the legs open so far. So there's your legs. And of course the open bottom in this allows you to shove sticks in here. You can trim them up and add an extra couple of inches, and that helps on the stability so the stove doesn't fall over in the snow. Okay, so the legs are done, door's been done, we've cut the hole. Let's move to the inside. Okay, so on to the inside. On the inside I've got a fire grate. This is a piece of old speaker grill I had floating around. 16 gauge speaker grill. You could use any expanded metal. Anything that holds the wood but still allows the air to come through. On the inside I've got 2 small pieces of angle iron. This isn't actually angle iron, this is just 2 pieces of metal that I bent into an L shape. On this I drilled small holes down the side, put the metal against it, and then did what they call a button weld to hold them in place. These 2 pieces of metal hold the grate up about 1 1/4 inches, 1.5 inches off the bottom. Just enough to allow some air to get up underneath, work its way through the grate, through the wood, and then eventually out the stack. Of course I've got a welder. You could do this without a welder. Instead of this funky fresh air grill that I've got here, you could just do, like I talked about earlier, just a single disc with a hole, drill 4 holes, and then of course when you turn the disc about 30 degrees, 15 degrees off, it opens up the holes or closes them up. The second thing you could do is on here, you can, instead of welding, you could just drill holes and use rivets. This, you don't have to sleeve it like I did. You could drill the hole a little bit smaller, and you could just insert the stovepipe so that this rests against it, and then you could probably trim this down a little bit. I don't know how stable the stovepipe would be in there, but it's another option to do it. So that does it for the ammo can stove. Now I'll fill it with wood and fire it up. So this is my abode for this trip. Got the hammock set up, got my Woobie set up as an under blanket. Got my ammo can stove, so we'll fire that up tonight. I used it last night, worked pretty good. Ta-da. Storm coming in tonight at about 2 a.m. in the morning. Light. See what it looks like after it snows. Stove's working great. And this is what I wake up to. Lovely morning.